This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and here we are at that once-a-year event. It's the new iPad, otherwise known by, well, the rest of us as the iPad 3. This is Apple's third generation tablet. We're going to take a look at it now. So this is the new iPad. That's literally what it seems to be called, or the third generation tablet from Apple. Right here we have obviously the black model, and this is a 32 gig Wi-Fi model. It's available just like the last round in 16, 32, and 64 gig capacities. I might suggest, if you can afford it, to go up to 32 gigs. We filled up the 16 gig model pretty easily, and new Retina display iPad apps are going to be even bigger, fatter downloads because they have more high-resolution graphics, so they're going to fill up space even more quickly. Plus, you'll probably be tempted to download the HD version of movies from iTunes and other sources onto this guy because it has higher than 1080p resolution. And perhaps one of the biggest improvements is now if you get the 3G, 4G model, you get 3G and 4G, not just 3G. That makes for significant speed increases if you're using cellular data, and you can get this in the US on Verizon or AT&T, both of whom have LTE networks. Now Verizon has a much bigger network rolled out. They had a head start, so they have about 200 metro areas covered. For AT&T it's less, but there's a consolation prize. This guy supports HSPA+, which is also very fast, and you can see up to 8 megabit per second downloads just on HSPA+, and about 1 megabit per second up. Not quite as awesome as LTE, where it depends on where you are and what kind of signal you have, but you'd see anywhere from, say, 12 to 16 megabit per second down. Potentially you could even see higher, and upload speeds tend to be faster too, at around 4 to 6 megabit per second. Beyond that, we have this lovely Retina display here, ever as fast as you'd expect from an iPad. The Retina display has incredibly high resolution, and it also has notably higher contrast too, and to our eye the colors are warmer than the last generation iPad and also a bit richer and deeper. I'm liking it so far, particularly for watching movies and looking at photos. That warm color tinge instead of the cool blue-white thing makes it look more cinematic. The Retina display has an insane 2048 by 1536 pixel resolution in the same 9.7 inch size LCD you're used to on the iPad 1 and iPad 2. So yes, higher resolution than 1920 by 1080 obviously, and it looks very sharp. Now, for normal human eyes, especially if you're not between the ages of say 0 and 25 with really good eyesight, you're not always going to see so much of a difference. Icons are going to look sharper, a little bit more finely made. Where you're really going to see the difference is you're playing games that are meant for Retina display on iPad, and we'll show you some of those. And if you're reading text, be it in web pages or in Kindle or in iBooks, text just looks, well, a lot more perfect and typographical, like it would in a print book, and a lot sharper and easier on the eyes. Price points are the same as with previous iPads. It's $499 for the 16 gig Wi-Fi only, and each increment of storage goes up $100 additional, so you're looking at $599 for 32 gigs, $699 for 64 gigs, which is currently the maximum. And if you want the Wi-Fi plus 3G, 4G LTE model, then it's going to cost you $629 for the 16 gig, $729 for the 32 gig, and $829, ouch, for the 64 gig with 3G and 4G. Doesn't matter whether you're getting the Verizon version or the AT&T version, pricing is the same. Both Verizon and AT&T have fairly similarly priced data plans as well, and so I'd say go with the carrier you like best who has the coverage that you enjoyed the most. There is no contract pricing with the iPad, so you're not getting any discount and you're not locking yourself into any contract. One difference with the Verizon version though, they do support mobile hotspot. That means you can turn this iPad into a mobile hotspot for your laptop, your phone, whatever it is, and AT&T for some reason doesn't support that feature. They've had it disabled. They could change that in the future. I certainly hope they do. Another thing to note is FaceTime. You've got FaceTime video chat. You folks who have been using Apple products know what that is. But you can only use that over Wi-Fi, not over 3G or 4G. Honestly, I think you're paying for the data. It's your data. You should be able to use it any way you want, but Wi-Fi only. Now let's take a look around. The basic dimensions are the same. It's gotten slightly thicker than the iPad 2 instead of getting skinnier and skinnier. For me, that's honestly fine. The iPad 2 was really just about as skinny as you can make anything, and it was kind of hard to hold on to. There's the taper happens a little later here on the edges, and that makes it a little easier to grip instead of being a long taper, so you have skinny edges here. A little bit more to grab onto. I like that. This is 0.37 inches thick versus 0.33 or 0.34 for the iPad 2, so hardly a difference here. Yes, it will fit in iPad 2 cases, but the camera and the microphone have moved ever so slightly, so that may not line up with your existing case. This weighs 1.44 pounds if you get this as a Wi-Fi only model, and 1.46 pounds if you get the 4G model. So again, that's up a little bit for the 1.34 pounds for the iPad 2. That's a couple of ounces. I do notice a difference a little bit. You know, there's some Android tablets that are weighing around the same. And as reviewers have noted, yeah, you feel the difference. I don't think it's a deal breaker though, but it's not ungodly light either. Got your usual Apple logo here. If you get the 4G model, there'll be a plastic area here. That's because the wireless antennas for 3G will be here and for the GPS. And otherwise, pretty much the same stuff. Again, here's your little mic hole. It's slightly shifted over from the iPad 2. Your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. It's your power button. And here's your 5 megapixel camera. Same basic module that's in the iPhone 4S. It takes nice photos. Slightly larger lens, just teeny bit shifted location. Mostly it's due to the larger lens size though. So that's the one that might get in the way of having you use your old case again. So your usual assignable button does rotation lock right there. Volume buttons. On the back here, here's your speaker, pretty much in the same place as before. Pretty much the same volume as before, still a mono speaker. And your 30-pin dock connector, same dock connector Apple's been using for some time. So all the peripherals you have that plug into that will still work. Now we're comparing it to the Asus iPad Transformer Prime. That's the quad-core Android tablet up top, and you can see the Prime is indeed a little bit thinner. And it's also a bit lighter because it weighs about the same as the iPad 2, which is 1 1/3 pounds. Now in terms of footprint from the front, they have different aspect ratio displays. Apple always goes with a 4:3 aspect ratio versus the widescreen one used on Android tablets. So that means you're going to see a little difference. The iPad is going to be a little bit taller top to bottom held in this orientation, but the Transformer Prime will be longer in that direction. Now we're going to compare it to the iPad 2, and hey, can you tell which is which? First glance, you probably can't. I mean, they look just about exactly identical. Same footprint on the top. Really, you don't notice that difference in thickness on the side there at all. And you can see what we mean about the microphone having moved just ever such a teeny bit up here. Really hard to see, but just a little bit. And here's the back view, and the iPad 3 is the one in the rear there with the larger camera lens. Now we have the new iPad 3, or just a new iPad here on the left side, and the iPad 2 on the right. They are both set to maximum brightness, and auto brightness is turned off. So you can see they're both really very good looking displays and very sharp. There's a bit more brightness, more saturation and contrast going on with the new one, but if you already own an iPad 2 and money is really dear to you, you don't have the bucks to spend, I would say it's certainly okay to stay with the iPad 2. The Retina display is lovely and all that kind of thing, but as you can see here, the difference isn't going to be earth-shattering when you're just doing day-to-day stuff. Icons a little sharper and crisper here. What you're going to notice is the text, the teeny tiny labels underneath here, are a little bit sharper, but where you're really going to see it more is in text on web pages and in ebooks, and we'll show you that next. And now we're in iBooks, and we have the same book open in both Bossy Pants, and right away you probably can see the difference in the color temperature. This is more warm, which is also, again, nice for books, because it's got a warm, kind of papery look versus the cool purpley blue thing going on here. But beyond that, what's really important is the text. So now we've got the same book open, same version of iBooks, same font selection available here, and we've defaulted to Iowan. That's an interesting, nice font. And you can see here that the lines are well, they look more typographic and more book-like. Very fine, but very crisp. You can really see the weighting on some of the character strokes here. Yet it's very clear. And I know it's hard to see this over video, but this is a little bit more blocky. You can see the edges of the fonts just a little bit. So that makes a difference in terms of your eyes being tired or making something readable at a smaller point size. And if we change to a heavy font like that, you can see again, very readable, very crisp, very clear. This one a little bit less distinct, though. This being a very cool display is also, it gives the illusion of a little bit of a darker bit of text on it, but overall this looks a lot more like a book. It's very nice, it's very pretty. And now we've stuck with the same font but moved it up several point sizes so you can see the edges of the text a little bit better. Again, I know it's hard over video. Now one thing about the old iPad too, I have to say that even if the fonts aren't as crisp and fine looking, There's quite a lot of contrast, and the character weight looks a little bit more bold on that, so it could be actually easier for some people. At least at first blush you might say, hey, this looks like a bolder font, I can read that better, even though they are the same font. And now we're in the updated Kindle application, which has been updated for the Retina display on the iPad, and again, really beautiful sharp text. I was not that thrilled to read on the iPad too, honestly, but I could see doing it here, and it's even sharper, say, than my Transformer Prime, which has a really nice IPS Plus display but lacks this level of resolution. Just super beautiful fonts. Very easy on the eyes. And notice we're at one of the smaller font sizes right here, and it really is very legible. I mean, my God, that's really teeny tiny right now. I don't have the greatest eyes, but I can actually read that if I needed to. And now again, we're side by side. iPad 3 on the left, iPad 2 on the right, both still running at maximum brightness, and both are on our web page. So you can see how fonts and colors look. And you can see that the new iPad is warmer. We don't have any problems with it being a yellow kind of display or anything like that, but it's definitely a warmer tone display. And who knows, there may be some panel variation. The one that you get might be cooler. If you look in the store, you might see some of each. But that is what it is. I'm not saying that's a problem by any means. I actually kind of like the warm look myself. In terms of text, bit sharper on the Retina display. Again, if you already own an iPad 2, it's not going to be an earth-changing thing for you, though. Both of them actually look pretty darn sharp. Pinch zooming. Speed. About the same, because both of these guys are running on a 1 gigahertz dual-core CPU. This is the A5 CPU in the iPad 2 and the A5X in the new iPad. And what that adds is a quad-core GPU, or graphics processing unit. So potentially things like games and video playback will be improved with that quad-core graphics processor, but other things, not so much. And now we've got a 1080p video trailer, MPEG-4 format, that we're going to try it on both of these at the same time, approximately. Color's a little bit deeper, richer here. That green zings a bit more. The iPad 2 actually gets a little advantage back because it's showing a video that has more pixels than it's capable of displaying, so it's squinching those pixels into a smaller area, which has the effect of sharpening things back up again. The iPad 3 pops a bit more in terms of colors and contrast.
What do we do? We get ready.
Both are up to the task in terms of horsepower that they have of playing these videos, so that's fine. And they're pretty high quality videos, so.
To bring together a group of remarkable people. So when we needed them,
So now we're playing Modern Combat 3, which is a Retina iPad optimized game, and you can see there's an incredible amount of detail here. Really good looking game. And we tried this on the original iPad too, and I can tell you do get a bit more detail on the new iPad, certainly with this version. Gameplay is fast and smooth. It actually plays fine on the iPad 2 as well, but I can tell you one thing, the iPad 3 gets hot when you do things like play games, especially the lower right-hand corner as held in landscape mode like we're holding it right now. About 95 degrees Fahrenheit. We measured it with our temperature gun, which is something we usually only have to do with notebook computers. And 95 is right there at the point where we start to say notebook computers might be getting uncomfortably warm on the bottom, so for something you're holding in your hands, I wish it ran a little cooler. This is kind of like going back to the iPad 1, which was a toasty tablet. Lastly, we're going to take a look at how photos look on this, and we're going to talk about the camera. Now, the camera is a 5 megapixel, the one on the back, much improved in terms of both photo quality and video quality. Front one's a VGA. We're going to take a look at some high-quality sample photos first that we've loaded on here, and you can see how really nice and sharp and popping they are. And the speed's great too. Pinch zooming speed is good. And this photograph here, we have an incredible amount of detail here. Lots of banners, lots of bricks, some things hidden in shade. And you can see how it really holds onto the detail nicely in this photograph of Chinatown in San Francisco. And now here are some photos that we actually took using the new iPad's camera. Some orchids, really nice. Now that's something the iPad 2 certainly can't do. Beautiful level of detail there, very pleasing photo. And in this photo you can see how the colors really pop, and again, just really an amazing level of detail. Look at that. That is something the iPad 2 certainly couldn't do. So much improved camera. No HDR mode though, so you can't do that triple exposure to find the best one, but so far it's been doing very good in low light photos, so well, that's okay by me. Now in terms of battery life, we haven't had it all that long yet, but Apple claims that it lasts about as long as the iPad 2, which is to say pretty long by 10-inch tablet standards, and so far it's holding up quite nicely. We are down to 35%. We started off with 82, and we have been playing a lot of games, HD videos, testing this guy in every way, shooting photos throughout a course of about 4 hours. So to give you an idea, that's really holding up very nicely, and with more average normal use, we do even better. And yes, we'll be doing some tablet comparisons too. Of course, we're going to compare this to the Asus ePad Transformer Prime, the quad-core Android tablet, for those of you who can't decide which one you might want. So that's the new iPad. It's available now. Again, it starts at $499 for the 16-gig Wi-Fi model, just like the iPad 2 and the iPad 1 did. And the iPad 2 is not going away. It is now reduced in price to starting at $399. So if you're really hard for cash, the iPad 2 is still not a bad choice. As you can see, it holds up pretty nicely compared to the new iPad, but the new iPad does bring that Retina display, lots of resolution there. Most importantly, for those of you who don't want the Wi-Fi only model, that upgrade to 4G makes a huge difference in terms of download speeds. And lastly, the much improved camera, pretty nice. And of course it ships with iOS 5.1, which is available as a download for those of you who have iPhone 4Ss, iPhone 4s, and the iPad 2 as well. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website to read the full review of the new iPad. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.